From stadiums to Sujood, that is the simplest way I can describe what happened to my life. Look, my name is Marcus Hale. I am 31 years old. I was born and raised in the United Kingdom. And for most of my life, if you had asked anyone who I was, they would have said one thing. He's the guy who plays ball. That was my identity. That was my world. That was my entire sense of worth wrapped into a single sentence. I used to breathe stadium air, not really thinking about the air that was keeping me alive. Today, things are different. Today, I wake up and the first thing I do is thank the one who gave me breath in the first place. I grew up in a pretty normal working class family. My mum was the steady one, always holding things together. My dad, well, he was the kind of man who loved quietly. Not a lot of words, but he'd show up to the pitch even in the rain, even when he had work early the next morning. When I was a boy, the ball felt like my only friend. I'd roll it under my foot before school. I'd kick it against the wall until our neighbour shouted. I'd sleep with it next to my bed like it was some sacred object. People used to tell me, "Marcus, you've got something in you." I didn't understand what that meant at the time. All I knew was that when I stepped onto a pitch, everything that confused me about life suddenly made sense. Every touch, every sprint, every shot. It was the first place I ever felt like I truly belonged. When I got into the academy system, things became intense. Training before school, after school, late nights, early mornings. My mates were out doing normal teenage things, and I was chasing a dream that felt bigger than me. But I didn't mind. Football was my language. It was the one thing I was confident about. The one thing I knew how to do well. And people loved you for it. That does something to a kid. When the world cheers for you, you start to think the world belongs to you. To be honest, the cracks started early, but I ignored them. Being praised at young, it messes with your sense of reality. You start tying your worth to your performance. If you play well, you're valuable. If you don't, you feel worthless. You feel disposable. By the time I went pro, the money, the attention, the pressure, it all came crashing in at once. You step onto the pitch and thousands of people are chanting your name. You go home and the silence is loud enough to swallow you whole. Sometimes I'd sit in the dark thinking, how can I be so loved out there and feel so empty in here? Fame is strange. It gives you everything you thought you wanted and takes the things you actually need. Peace, privacy, a sense of who you are when no one's watching. I fell into the lifestyle, the late nights, the distractions, the need to constantly feel validated. I was 24 and living like I was invincible, but inside, I was sinking. Every season I'd promised myself I'd clean up my life, and every season I sank deeper into the same cycles. What hurt the most wasn't the mistakes I made. It was waking up and realizing I didn't even like the person I'd become. I'd look in the mirror and think, who is this guy? Where did Marcus go? The moment everything changed for me wasn't dramatic. No lightning bolt. No big tragedy. It was something simple, almost embarrassing in how small it seemed. One night, after a game, I sat in my hotel room scrolling through messages, interviews, praise, criticism, all of it. And suddenly, this strange heaviness came over me. Not sadness, not fear, just exhaustion. The kind that comes from carrying a life that was never meant to rest on your shoulders alone. I turned off my phone and just sat there. And in the silence, I whispered something I had never said in my whole life. God, if you're real, help me. I don't know who I am anymore. I didn't know why I said it. I wasn't religious. I barely believed in anything. But those words, they felt like they came from somewhere deeper than my voice. It was the first honest thing I'd said in years. And that night, I slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. That was the beginning. Islam didn't rush into my life. It came softly, through people I didn't expect, in moments that felt too precise to be coincidence. There was a brother on my team, a quiet guy who prayed in the changing room sometimes. I used to tease him for it, not in a mean way, just the way athletes joke. But he never reacted, never argued. He just smiled and said, "One day you'll understand peace." Peace. That word didn't leave my mind. Then I started watching videos, not because I was searching for a religion. I was searching for answers, for something to anchor me. I'd watch players in the Premier League speak about their faith. I'd watch reverts tell their stories. And something inside me kept whispering, "Listen." I remember watching one video late at night. A man said, "Islam isn't something you become. It's who you've always been beneath everything the world told you to be." That hit me. Deep. Eventually, my teammate invited me to a mosque. I walked in with my hood up, hoping no one would recognize me. It was quiet, peaceful, no chants, no noise, just men bowing their heads in humility. Something in my chest softened. I felt home, a home I never knew was mine. A few weeks later, sitting with the imam, I felt this undeniable clarity, like the fog over my life was lifting. He asked me if I was ready, and I said the words slowly, quietly, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah." And I cried, not from sadness, from release. It felt like my heart finally exhaled after years of holding its breath. Life after Islam didn't magically become easy. People think Shahada is the finish line. It's really the starting point. I had to rebuild myself. I had to relearn what matters. The nights out stopped. The noise inside my head faded. Not instantly, but day by day. What amazed me most was how Islam didn't pull me away from sport. It transformed the way I played. Before, it was ego. Now, it was gratitude. Before, I chased applause. Now, I chase sincerity. Before, I was performing for the crowd. Now, I play with the awareness that God sees everything, even the intentions no one else sees. My platform changed. People started asking why I'd changed, why I was calmer, why I prayed, why I said, "Alhamdulillah," even after losses. So I spoke, not to preach, not to force, just to share, just to be honest. And somehow, honesty speaks louder than any performance ever did. Today, every time I step into Sujood, I think, how did a boy who lived for stadium lights end up bowing with tears in the dark? That is the mercy of God. He guided me even when I was running the other way. If you're listening to this and you feel lost, look, I know that feeling. I know what it's like to wake up with a life that everyone else thinks is perfect, while you're breaking quietly inside. Ask yourself one thing: what am I really chasing, and is it giving me peace? Because if it isn't, then maybe, just maybe, you're running in the wrong direction. Islam didn't make me perfect. It just made me honest. It made me human again. It gave me a place to put my pain, my gratitude, my confusion, my hopes. It taught me that you don't need fame to feel seen. You don't need money to feel rich. You don't need a stadium to feel alive. All you need is a moment of sincerity. One moment when you say, "God, guide me." And trust me, He will. Here it is. Your story is not defined by how you start or how you fall. It is defined by the moment you decide to rise and who you rise towards. From stadiums to Sujood, that was my journey. And if you're searching, if you're hurting, if you're longing, maybe your journey starts today.